This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, everybody, here we are in February, and we're talking about taking your Treibball game from training to competing. So I've never done a live Treibball event. We have a couple that we hope are going to happen this year. So of course, live events is the ultimate goal for all of us, but we also have steps along the way, including video titling. So let's see if I can move up to some of the thoughts I had. Let's see, did the screen change? I need to, there we go. All right, they changed the interface here. So these are, can anybody see that? I know it's not huge.
Yeah.
I can try to make it bigger. So for me, this is kind of the step that I thought was number one was, well, you can't have treats in there with you. And when I was training originally, we didn't add we didn't start working without treats until we were already playing the full novice game. And then we had to kind of go back and leave the treats outside the field and kind of start all over training that. So I've been, with my students, I've been beginning to experiment with, from the very beginning, like right about the time they're through their first, 8 weeks or so, we're beginning to work on training in the field without treats, just doing really easy skills. And practicing that, just for a minute of each practice session or each class. So yeah, what do you guys think about, when do you start training without treats? When do you wish you had?
Yeah, it's definitely a good skill to start early on, so you don't sort of use it as a crutch too much. But on the other hand, too, you also have to make sure that the dog is ready for, that sort of step.
Mm-hmm.
You can also.
Yeah, I think it just depends on each dog. How much?
There's Carolyn.
Hi.
Hi, Carolyn.
Okay. Sorry, I was having difficulty or logging in. But Karen, to your point, yeah, I think it just depends on the dog, on when they feel like they're ready, where they don't need that constant reinforcement with the treats or.
Yeah. So I'm not really familiar with the rules, in trialing and stuff. Can you use alternate reinforcers like hand touch, like build some secondary reinforcers?
No, you can't have any treats or toys on the field, and you cannot touch your dog from the time they cross the line till when they're down at the end of a run.
Okay.
Verbal praise is always encouraged.
Okay. The thing about that's something you want to build too, is actually, because praise itself, I like to say praise is like a debit card. It only has value. You have to make sure there's a lot of money in the bank to start with.
I like that.
So what you need to do is definitely, you can just do it by classical conditioning, is praise and then back it up with foods. Right. The food eventually, or the praise over time, eventually takes on some of the same power as the food. But
yeah,
again,
I noticed.
Be careful with that.
Yeah, I noticed that with JoJo when I did as late as I just explained earlier, started leaving off the treats, that if I praised her and then paused for a second before I sent her out for the next ball, like it was time for it to kind of soak in and her to feel some sense of satisfaction. But if I just tried to just send her right out, then she would bark at me. So that's something that I didn't build that, do two things and then get a treat well enough that I don't have her trained to just like run in and run back out again. And that's something that I'd like to think about, how to build that.
When you think about it, it's sort of like you're building really long chain behavior.
Right.
Which involves distance and discrimination.
Yeah.
So the thing I have my students doing from the very first thing I have them do is just walk on the field, remove the leash, and do a hand target, and then put the leash back on, and then come out for a treat. So I mean, like starting with the very most basic thing that they could do, and then gradually working up from there. And it seems like that's working well. So, all right, all right. Anybody else want to talk about how they introduce no treats on the field?
Well, are we talking about closing the gate? Yeah, I don't know what part.
No, so this was just focusing on how to lose the treats. Any thoughts anybody had on that? And then I have more thoughts. So we can always come back to that if anyone has any ideas. So then the next idea I had was that practicing the whole title run sequence. That again, this is something you should be working at from the beginning. Having the dog on leash, closing the gate yourself, if that's how you're going to be doing it during at least video titling, making the calls yourself, having someone else make the calls. Again, doing a real easy behavior, like a hand target and then a down, and then leave the field for your jackpot treat or play session outside the field. And again, follow a sequence of increasing difficulty so that you're practicing that whole chain with just one easy behavior in the middle instead of playing a whole game of Treibball. So that was another thought. Anybody else working on things like that?
I think that's a huge point. I even found that just the act of turning on the video was a cue for my dogs, because I normally wouldn't do that in practice. So even the simple things of just like pretending you're hitting the button or setting up the tripod, and little things really.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really affected, especially my border collie. He doesn't like different things. So just the act of even pressing, it was like he knew, like, oh, you pressed the red button and now I have to perform. So I unfortunately started the leash stuff later, which I think that's a really good point that you brought it up, that you start that from the very beginning, because if you're just practicing and you don't take on and off the leash, then they know something's up there too. Closing the gate yourself, and even I think with the balls in order game specifically, that you have to call out the order if you're doing it yourself or somebody else's. It was a big difference for both my dogs in the two different games, of just the act of saying the ball order before, because I know how to do that. So just little things that you don't really think of until you're actually doing it, to practice, because your dog does know the difference. And I think we've said this before, is that even though it's just video titling, you do get nervous still, because you do. Yeah.
You're being recorded, and someone else
you're being recorded, and you only have so many runs, depending, it may be hot that day, or
Right, or if you have, like, you've been doing a pop-up field, you've gone to all that work to load all the equipment and drive over there, measure it all out, and then you're like, okay, dang it, you better perform, dog.
Exactly. I got this one shot before the winds pick up, right? There's so like there is that added stress. So the more that you can make it like you're actually videoing, if that's what you're going to do, then I think
cool.
That's better.
Yeah, so I appreciate you adding that. So I put in start the camera, or have a camera person standing in place, because we've had issues with that as well, where the dog's like, oh, suddenly someone's standing right there on the fence. I'm going to say hi.
Yeah, that's a good point to add too. If you're doing a live competition, is have friends stand, around the edge of the field there.
Oh.
Yeah. Because if you're normally training you and the dog, and also there's people standing there,
we'll add that.
Off-putting for the dog as well.
I like that. Cool.
Another piece you might add too is, I don't know if when you're doing your competition, live competitions, if you've got a photographer there, as I suggest, suggest that you proof the dogs to photographers. I
Yes.
photograph for NACSW, National Association of Canine Scent Work. I also compete. I'm very, very sensitive to how the dogs handle my presence as a photographer. Even though I can be a distance off, if I see a dog who's, struggling in the environment and spending a little too much time watching me instead of, focusing on what they're supposed to be doing, I just put the camera down and stop shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a training thing, because I don't want people saying like, well, I didn't title because the photographer, made my dog nervous. And it's a training problem. It really is a training problem. So,
Yeah.
start stuff out like that early. It's just put weird stuff, put
Yes.
stuff, animals
Weird
out
stuff.
around the field. Anything you can think of that's weird.
Yeah.
So dogs just get used to it, because the more
Great,
odd
thank you.
things you train with, the better your dog's going to be in real life situations. You got a Easy Up, or you got one of those, pop-up shelters. Put that off to the side. Anything that's going to be possibly there for competition.
Right, right.
So we practice in a group, which I don't know how many people here do that. So one of the things that we do is we do try to have like a steward in the ring, so someone helping set up the balls in between.
Yeah,
that's happening too. And we're not quite as sophisticated as your list, but we definitely try to. Our field has an entrance gate and an exit gate, and definitely when we're doing Treibball, we try to encourage everyone to, properly walk in the entrance, always on your leash, and always exit on your leash. Because sometimes we play around in the field and do other things, and we try to go through the exit when we're doing things that aren't Treibball, and only go through the entrance when we're gonna go and work.
I
Wait,
see.
what's that? You only go through the exit when you're doing?
Like if we're gonna go play, like we'll let the dogs run and play.
Okay.
After this.
Right. Okay.
So when that, you go through the exit. Like
Oh,
you're not gonna
interesting.
Treibball.
Yeah.
Just give that cue that like when I take you through the entrance, it's time to work.
It's time to
Right.
work.
I like that.
You go through the exit. That means like trying to get that cue of when I need you to work for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
It is a good point.
See what else I had here. Okay, so handler demeanor. Film a training session and a practice tile run. And notice how are you different. Isolate and avoid changes in how you walk in, remove the leash, give cues, etc. So this is something we've noticed. Like you said, you turn that camera on and you're different, right?
Yeah.
And the dogs know
Yeah,
it.
well, I actually, I think I noticed is that if I'm practicing, I may have either a treat or a ball, and I was holding, just my arm a certain way. So when I go in and off the field, I just ought to like keep my arm up as if I was holding like a treat or the ball, because that became like a cue to walk properly. Even though I didn't realize I was doing it, it was just because I always tend to carry the ball this way into the field if I was practicing. But I realized that just by, even if I had nothing, just doing that motion with my arm kept my dogs like walking by my side.
Mhm.
So just, and that's something I watched over on videos. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I keep my arm up like that. And oh yeah, there's a lot of things you could. I just like videoing. I think anything training wise, if it's even another sport, is how much your cues are off. And sometimes I'll film a run and be like, even a practice run, I'm like, oh well, why did he do that? And see that it was something that was so slight on my. Because the thing with Treibball, especially if you're filming it from the back, you're not seeing what your dog is seeing, I guess.
That's a good point. Yes, set up your
So
video.
it's good to see. Yeah, so when you put your dog out and behind the triangle or whatever skill you're doing, is to seeing it from their point of view. Is sometimes it's just like, well, no wonder.
Mhm.
I wasn't seeing it, but once I watched the video, so just I think that has been the most helpful. It's kind of like instant replay, I guess, with football or anything. You can naturally see, like, oh, well, that's what he was
Yeah.
saying. I didn't see it at the time, and unfortunately, sometimes you don't. But you become more aware of all these little ticks that you might have. Or I tend to wear hats a lot, and I was noticing I was doing this, and that cued my dog would go down more. Yeah, just little things. I noticed that with my students too, that like mannerisms like that, the head tilt, or if they wore a hat, or so yeah, I think there's a lot more that cues our dog than we think sometimes. At least that's what I've learned over a couple years. So it's usually my fault. That's what I'm trying to whether I admit it or not.
Yeah,
Anyone else want to chime in?
I think sometimes we don't realize what our cues actually look like from another
Yeah.
angle. We have our mental image of what we're portraying, and then from the dog's perspective, it's probably something totally different.
I think what we found out, even facial expressions were causing them to react a certain way too. I know Chris used to give me a hard time when I was training Liza. I'd get a big grin on my face when she did something right, in addition to saying like yes. So she, I quit saying yes, but I still got the big smile and grin on my face. And Liza was like, "Oh yeah, cool, I did it right, woo," and she'd stop. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Carolyn. It'd be a good idea to film it from the view of the dog.
Yeah. So I tend to do that when I'm doing training runs, is I put it right behind the triangle, so you get like a more of a idea of not just from angle, but from behind. But that's,
Miles.
well, I guess every angle would have its benefits, but more so from the dog's perspective. But I found out like you're right. Like if I laugh or if I'd say yes, especially if I'd be sending them, I'm like, yes, like you're going the right way. They turn around, like that cue yes was like, oh, what do you want? Instead of like marking, I was actually cueing them to turn around and look at me for redirection. But so yeah, like you said, it's funny, and that you don't realize some of these things. Like I thought I was encouraging them, instead I was like hindering, like what did you say? I'm supposed to stop and look. So yeah, I think the give cues thing is huge, especially because there's so many different elements to the game, like sending them out, having them line up, pushing the ball in. There's so many things that you're cueing, pushing, not pushing, go back. Yeah, arm gestures. I don't know. Everybody's different, but I think it's good to realize some of the things that you're doing, instead of getting, oh well, he did it last time just fine, I didn't do anything differently. But the video doesn't lie. It's like a photograph doesn't, right? Video doesn't lie. So
yeah, and even just having somebody else watching, they can point out little tiny things that you might not even notice when you watch the video.
Yep, that's true. You can be biased against yourself.
I was at a Kathy Sadeo seminar years ago, and she asked how many people in the room did multiple sports for their dogs, and of course almost everybody put their hands up. Just, so have you made a cue dictionary, writing down what each of your cues are for these various sports? And you got to thinking, like, boy, it's amazing my dog actually understands what I asked them to do, and you got multiple things that you're doing, and it's and one gesture looks very much like another one that's for something else, but they've definitely got some
I like that.
I know in the marine mammal world they do that a lot, just because you've got multiple trainers on the animal. They want to make sure that everybody's got the same cue for this, the behavior.
All All right, well, let's see what else I jotted down here. Let's see, video titling in particular, camera operator issues and making the call issues. So training your help.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. That's why I found doing it myself was easier than actually training my son or my husband as many things. Ultimately, I didn't turn the camera on. I didn't. Yeah, it's.
Oh, I thought I had it on.
Yeah. Yep.
All
I've
right.
done that myself. Even I've done. Oh, look, that was the best run ever, and find out like I never even put the camera on. You know. Hers was worst. I'm like, I nailed it, but I can't prove it.
If you're Apple people, if you have an Apple Watch, you can control your camera from your watch.
Oh, really?
Oh.
I'm not hip with the technology, but that's why I was, because I know like some of them come with like the remote now, right? But I like that, the Apple
You
Watch.
go into the app, you can preview what it's showing, and you can start the
Oh, wow.
video with your watch.
Oh.
Really?
And that goes to any camera, or you have to sync it?
If you're filming on your phone or like an iPad.
Oh, if you do, okay. Oh, well, see?
Very clever.
I usually film on my phone. It's just as good as my camera.
Yeah. I'll just have to get an Apple Watch.
Boy.
That's the technology. Yeah, but that would be, it would, I was thinking that like I would want to get one of those remotes because like they just the going back and like, oh, like you forgot to do this and you got to go all the way back, turn it off, and then, but I like that. That's neat.
I
Oh,
just
you
thought of
young people
one other
today.
thing. Making sure, reviewing that your field markings are visible in the video. That's a good thing to do.
So can you like go over, like review like what really needs to be visible? Patsy and I were talking about this with her field, and you know, we have a permanent field, so we have the outside gates, and we have all of our numbers permanently along the side, our distance markers. And we have like fencing for the actual goal, and we've been using cones for to mark the handler's box. And she said even if she used like spray chalk, you know, spray paint to mark things, it's not that visible on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you know, with the standard game, as long as you make sure that, you know, from the video perspective, you're clearly, the dog has pushed the ball clearly over the line of the handler area, you know, then you're good. So that's why a lot of us worked on having our dogs, you know, push the ball all the way into the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And being really careful grabbing the ball from the handler area. But once you get to balls in order, you're going to have an issue you've got to be able to see the goal line if you do have any balls that need to be rolled back out. So if the ball stops in the handler area and balls in order, you can just ignore it. You can leave it there. But if it rolls over the goal line, it has to be rolled back out. The wrong ball, right? A wrong ball. And so we struggled with that. And do you have a grass field or a
Yeah.
Okay, well, Chris figured out what to do, and I think she actually posted it on the Nate members Facebook a while ago, and it's white Christmas garland. And so I bought some, and you just tack it in with those those garden staples, or I think they call them, that you use for hoses, and they can just get put down temporarily on the grass for the when filming runs, and it works great. And it's completely visible from a distance, and the balls roll right over it. So that's, those are that's the criteria. So for grass, that's a great solution.
Cool.
That's another thing you got to get the dogs used to also.
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. Yeah.
Right.
And it's shimmering, and they get.
And moving.
Yeah, and moving.
But once I got used to it, it was no big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, like you would expect at first, it was pretty much a novelty, and then after a while, they just got down to business.
Yeah, and also if you're using cones, I found this out with my students and also watching other people's videos, that if you practice using certain cones, I know I use like the cones to teach the dogs to line up, and then if I use them as field markers, they would tend I would tend to sometimes be pointing out that way to a ball or in the handler area that they would line up behind or go around the cones. So that's just something to be aware. I eventually I tried to um, put down lower markers than I was using for training. Sometimes that wasn't possible, but just
Yeah.
that's something I've seen more. I've seen that happen to multiple people where they're using like a certain well, generally it's the cones, but they tend to line up behind it, or they might go out to the cone because they're used to. So that's just something to be aware of, whatever you're.
Yeah, so that's why we decided to start with planter,
Yeah.
plastic planter pots. So we never use cones for anything but the handler area marking.
Yeah, that's smart. All these little things.
Good point.
All right, anyone have anything else on this? Let's see, I think the last thing I have is live trials. So let's see, this is what I came up with. Practice in new locations, make sure you lower your expectations so the dog is successful. Hold pretend trials in new locations, and then create setups. A couple we came up with were like get a new dog your dog's never met and like rub it over on a ball, or some treat, some cheese smelling treat or something, rub it on balls to make sure that your dog gets to practice focusing on a ball that a dog might have slobbered on with some cheese on their breath. So those are the ideas. Carolyn, you might have more on this to offer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I've had to recently be switching locations. Like the practicing new locations for me has been vital, and sometimes I just constantly keep mats and maybe a ball in the back, so I'll just take it out if I just go to a park or the beach or a parking lot and just practice in different locations. But the smells, I think, is the hardest thing, and I think yeah, just something like throwing some treats out in the field on purpose, even just adding just as much as you can. I know you want to set your dog up for success, but especially if you're working in a training facility or a field, Lorraine, you were saying, I think like you have a permanent field that you work on, or I know when I was working in the inside building, like there would be classes before mine. So like that was, people would dribble dog treats from the puppy class before. So just the more distractions you can put on without being like so distracting that the dog can't perform. I think you can even do it in a place where you normally practice. You can set up, like Monica was saying, just adding the ball thing is a big one too. Like just having other people handling the balls. When I started letting people use my balls for other classes, or it was a big difference when my regular students came, and then they're like, oh, well, this is a new smell. Nobody's used this ball, but and that will happen in a live trial. Other dogs are obviously going to be touching your ball. That's sorry.
We know where you're going with that.
Okay, I should have called myself before. Anyway,
So,
you sort of walked right into it.
I did.
Hey, Karen, you mentioned photographing, having a professional photographer on the field or at the event. So you were talking about, I don't remember which sport it was, but I think in Treibball, the photographer wouldn't actually be on the field. They would always be on the side of the field, wouldn't they?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, same thing I do. I do canine nose work, and yeah, I am not in the search area, but the believe me, dogs can get really freaked out about that big eye tracking them as they're moving. And, you know, if the dogs are environmentally sensitive, it doesn't matter
Right.
how far away that photographer is.
Okay, so I can just add that to this
The
photographer
other
up
thing too
here.
is
Okay.
people might want to, you know, find, if you don't have a camera of your own, but tape record or get a recording of if someone's doing rapid burst. I never do rapid bursts when I'm photographing, but you can set cameras up so you can get quite a few photos in a very, you just hit the shutter and it's just like click, 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 click. And
Right.
I've seen dogs whip their heads around.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
that's happened to my border collie a few
Oh,
times.
Yeah.
I like that.
The photographer came a little too over and he was going through the weeds, rah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And that sound was going off and it
That,
spooked him and that was it. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. So again, it's, you know, make a tape recording of it and get your dog desensitized to sound.
Well, and what about like dog noises and a strange dog barking, even a dog fight, you know, off to the side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could set that right. Come on.
Well, no, if you had a recording of it, right?
A recording of
a video.
Find lots of sound dogs.
If you guys want to hear your dogs bark and come practice with us, we have a lot of big barks.
Oh yeah, so do we. So do we.
I have some friends. You can borrow their corgis.
But yeah, but in this case, it would be a strange dog, right? Because right now, you know, we have a training group like you do, Lorene, and the dogs all know each other. And if we're practicing, you know, and somebody new wanders onto the field, sometimes the dogs get startled by that, you know, because normally it's just our group there during the time we've been training. Luckily, that's changing. They're running agility classes now at the same time, so we've got more dogs coming and going, which is great, I think. So.
Yeah, just going into more maybe training into you know, you don't want to say not enough fenced area, but like maybe areas that are just more stimulating. I'll purposely go to like right outside a dog park and maybe just throw a mat down or just so they get used to like other dogs running around. Even though Treibball, like would be said, it's not like agility or where there's other dogs flying around constantly. They'll be a little bit separate, but they still have to get used to. I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
What about weather?
Yeah.
Oh, weather. God, that
weather.
doesn't even occur. That doesn't occur to me. We haven't had rain in 6 weeks. Weather.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah.
Where all you are, probably some Massachusetts. Lorraine, you're out in Portland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wind.
You get a lot of rain too, huh?
And wind.
Winds and winds. Yeah. I fight with the winds the most. That's what Monica, you do too out there.
Yeah, a little bit, not bad. I mean, we
Yeah.
do need to train. We do need to train with the stabilizer rings, so the dogs are used to having those on the field. And
what are stabilizer rings?
so you use plastic tubing. It's all in the handbook described very clearly, and you make a ring out of it, and it holds the ball when it's windy.
Oh, okay.
So I think you guys train indoors, so you use more like the
No,
little.
No, we're out.
I'm sorry. Who's that? That's
Linda.
Linda. Oh, sorry.
No, we're outside in the wind and the weather.
Oh, okay. And you haven't made any stabilizer rings yet then, huh?
I don't think Lisa has. We just kind of use a toe and make a divot in the sand.
Okay. Well, if you have a little bit of a softer surface, but yeah, if you've got the grass and you got wind, it's just, unless you have a stabilizer ring, it's all over.
I use nursery pots. You get a fairly good size pot that you bought plants from the nursery, about that big around, and just cut it out. So you've got a ring about that tall, and then you can put the ball right in it.
Right.
Oh.
That wouldn't be legal for competition, though.
No.
Yeah. So with weather, you guys talk to me about weather.
I mean, I think you'd have to figure out where, if you're going someplace, You know, I imagine if you're going from where, you know, sunny California and you came up to Portland for a trial,
It's
you might
raining.
be mean.
We have
Yeah.
snow.
I mean, in Portland, we go outside in all different weather. I mean, we also train inside. But, you know, we do get a lot. I mean, we don't get, probably the only thing we haven't done is snow. But we've been in, you know, heavy rain, light rain, sunny, cloudy, windy. But yeah,
Right.
we haven't done snow yet.
Yeah, I've worked in snow. It's fun. It's interesting.
So really, we just need to train in all weather, right? I mean, when you have an opportunity.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a lot of times it's more the handler that has the problem with than the dog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I know with my nosework students, getting them to go out when it's rainy or when it's cold, it's like, well, not today. It's like, you know, if you're planning on trialing, you'd better go out there and train in that stuff.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right. If you signed up and you paid your money already,
Yeah.
and traveled. Well, my dog, when it starts to rain, she looks up at the sky and looks at me like, "Would you knock it off and turn the sprinkler off?"
Did you get it so ready? Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have a dog that was born in June and then it didn't rain that year until, January, so all those formative months of her life, there was no rain. So she still doesn't understand what it is.
That's
I
funny.
think for the live trial too, you'd want to practice or know like what the kenneling or like whatever situation would be.
Situation.
Because like
Mm,
for our practices, like we just have all the dogs in kennels waiting their turns.
Yeah.
But I imagine like, you know, we haven't thought through our trial what we're going to do yet, but it might be like your dog has to be in its car, which would be a novel thing for our dogs. They don't usually come in and out of cars to go play Treibball. So that's probably something you want to like at least know what's going to happen and practice that.
Yeah.
It's not something you normally do.
So yeah, talk some more about that because I don't have really in any sport I don't have any live tribal experience. So that trial host can insist that dogs are stored, that's not the right word, are kept in the car except for when they're running or they're on
That's
deck.
the way it works in a nosework trial, is your dogs kennel in their vehicles. And you come out and do your run and go back.
Huh. What about agility?
Agility trials, some people kennel their dogs in vehicles and some of them are at the facilities.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it depends on your individual dog. Some dogs
It
do
depends
better
on the, yeah. Mine do,
in cars.
they don't like they can't be quiet if another dog's running, or they
Yeah.
just don't like to be. Yeah. I think it just depends on the dog. It also depends on like heat factors, and there's a lot that goes into it. But I think I think what we came out with when we did the judges, that the crates had to be a certain amount of, and that goes most dog sports, I'm sure there's a certain amount of feet that any other dog is allowed to be vicinity of while another dog's going, as far as crating but I forget what ours is off the top, but I know it's a pretty good distance from where the gate line is. As
Great
far as
input.
So here's a question that might not be. Do you have, not something odd about this, but do you have reactive dogs, or can reactive dogs compete?
Yeah, I mean, my dog's reactive, and so that's part of what Carolyn was saying. We've
yeah,
got it set up that dogs aren't going to be right on the fence line, I don't
right,
believe. And then the dog on deck is in a area that's got a visual block, and it's at least X feet away at 15 feet from, I think.
yeah, it was a pretty significant
Okay.
amount.
And yeah, so I mean, I think at least when I began Treibball, it was, my trainer was billing it as, a great sport for reactive dogs. They're on the
Yes,
field one at a time.
Yeah.
And so we actually, advertise for reactive dogs, but it's something we do mention. Yes,
So
you
as
could.
trial host, you might also think about because this is one thing we do in canine nosework, is there is a reactive dog parking area.
Mm.
Because everybody's kenneling their dogs out of their vehicles, so we have sort of normal competitors, i.e. dogs who can handle being, parked, close enough so you can get your dogs out of your cars. But then they have reactive dog parking, which is where the dogs who can't handle that, usually
I'll write
just
that down.
barking dog, really barking dogs on top of everybody else.
I like that. I'm going to suggest that to some of the places I go for agility, because it is disturbing to go past a bunch of
I mean,
dogs when it's ready your turning. Rah, 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 rah.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's also just being smart about it and making sure you've got
Yeah,
your
no, but that's
great
just it's.
else.
I've never seen that at a trial site. I think that's a great idea that people. I don't know why people. I always park far away just for my dog's own comfort, but also to be respectful for other people. But some people just aren't. They're not. They don't have awareness, or I don't know. But I like that. That's a nice.
The other thing in nose work is reactive dogs will wear red bandana. And not saying that obviously your dogs can go out in the field wearing a red bandana, but you might say it's a transport thing from, say, vehicle to where they're going into the ring to work, that the reactive dogs would be, marked with a red bandana. Just to give everybody to make sure. I mean, we try to make sure everybody's got lots of space between every dog, but just the red bandana dog's a little bit extra.
Right. Well, and people who've never had a reactive dog, they're just not at the same level of vigilance.
Yes.
Yes.
That is true. But yeah, I think the Treibball is different in some ways, and maybe nose work is a little bit like, but that your dog is going off and working, especially when you get to upper levels, so far away from you.
Yeah.
So whereas other sports you might be right next to your dog more. So the distraction level, the distance, and the thing between you and your dog are now. I think it gets more hairy the further distance you go out, and especially the more time, because once you get into advanced or masters, your dog can be out there for 3-4 minutes. And
Yeah.
so I think endurance is something to train, or how if your dog does have to try to, working on getting them back on track. Because especially when you're working, I think it's a matter of time. And if you're working in windy areas, I've had it like you get a bunch of leaves going by, it's all of a sudden like, whoosh, now you have to compete with that, whereas if you're in agility or something else where you're working close to your dog, you don't have to, you're fighting with all these different elements, I think. So a lot can happen.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure.
My thought is that people, since you're talking, even though the dogs are working alone, they're off lead and other dogs are warming up. And my sense is that somebody with a reactive dog really ought to be taking advantage of the video trialing. I had my dog attacked by an off-lead dog who was known to be reactive, and it was an opportunistic. The dog got loose, and he singled my dog out. And I don't think I'd be very comfortable at a live trial with a reactive dog because our fencing is so low.
I think a lot of it has the handler has to be aware of their dog's capabilities. I mean, just saying your dog can compete because of reactive is not correct. I mean, your dog has to be able to handle the environment.
Well, in this case, the owner of the German Shepherd is a trainer, and she knew her dog was reactive. And there I was standing on the grounds, minding my own business, when suddenly I had a German Shepherd coming at us full bore, off lead.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning a dog in the ring pushing balls and suddenly spying a dog way over in the corner of the field warming up that he doesn't like. And I kind of feel that dogs who go after other dogs really should take advantage of videotaping.
Oh yeah. No. There's reactive and there's aggressive. They're sort of two different things.
Okay, well, yeah, a dog who barks at other dogs, yes, but a dog who wants to go after other dogs.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think you, like I said,
and I think that in nose work, you know, they can get out of their car, they're on a leash, they go into a room, they are all by themselves, they're the only dog there, they won't see another dog, and that's different.
I have seen dogs excused from trials. Aggressive dog, you know, your dog can be, reactive dogs are permitted to compete in nose work, but they cannot be out of control. And if they show reactivity or aggression towards people, they are out of the trial.
Yeah.
I had a dog, as a photographer, I had a dog who reacted to me on the sidelines. And that dog was asked to leave the trial.
Right.
Same thing if the dog has an incident with like another dog in the parking lot. If they're walking in and the dog looks to be out of control, they will be asked to leave. You know.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm just concerned that once a dog starts running and chasing balls, he's already in a state of arousal and prey drive, and he's off lead, and the boundary fence is very low. And I would just think Treibball might want to encourage people that have a good recall and do not have a aggressive dog, because I think some people who have aggressive dogs are in denial.
Yes, exactly. I agree.
I think it also depends on your field. Like our field has like a 5.5 foot tall fence around the whole field. We don't have people practicing off lead outside the field. Like you're on leash until you get into the field.
Right.
So we don't, we don't have that where there's a dog off practicing off to the side off leash when someone is in the field. You're in the field, you're the only dog who's off leash. Everyone else is in their kennels or like not there.
Okay.
So that's not like a concern for us the way we have ours set up.
It would depend on the field. Like.
Right.
Right. But I was just responding to the idea that with live trials and in the early days that, somebody mentioned that Treibball was a reactive dog-friendly sport. And I think that's especially true when you figure that the videotaping is an option.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have a dog who's a magnet for others who would like to eat him.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's a good point. Actually, it's a good point, Marianne. I added that in. If you have a reactive dog, evaluate your dog's capabilities and the fencing carefully.
Right.
Well, the other thing too is you may also say or you may have to say that the stewards may have the ultimate decision. If someone's walking into the ring and competing, that dog is giving hairy eyeballs at every dog on the way in, and is clearly more focusing on the dogs than the handler and thing. Stewards may say, you don't have secure fencing. They may say, I don't know.
Right.
I would rather the steward say, this is, so you have a pissed off competitor, but you might also save a potential disaster.
Or if it's possible, to run them last and have everybody else put their dogs up.
Yeah.
And just accept the fact that it's not 100% safe, depending on the fencing, to have other dogs out. If there's, it may be the first time that dog reacts that way, and they had no idea. But I'm sure we've all seen the dog who suddenly goes across from one agility ring into the other. Yeah. Or comes out of the, they go to catch them at the end of the run, and the dog dives out of the ring and goes after some unsuspecting competitor, and now they've got the gating situation as a result.
Right.
Yeah, well, I know ATA, I mean, we have, hopefully we'll be doing a trial, but I know that they require that their dogs are not even in that same vicinity, and they have to be crated at all times. Where in an agility, or I'm sure like more popular dog sports where people are doing around all the time. And then there's depending on how many people are competing, you might have a line of 5 or 6 dogs all waiting there at the gate, which I think that's something that we've already said no to. Like there's not going to be a line of, unless
Right.
it explodes, and we don't have to worry about that right yet. But I think it's always going to be that type of sport where the dogs are either going to be in their crates or out in their cars or like a certain distance, because you're always going to have that factor of like the dog's going to be out here. And so any kind of motion movement on the sides, because it isn't like agility or something else where you might be running with your dog where you might have a little more control of what's going on. But I know that in those trials that, they make it that there can't even be another dog out in the vicinity of where they're, if another dog's competing, there can't even be another dog in sight.
Yeah.
So that means that they're either crated, behind a blind or in the cars. So that's something I think is going to be literally trial and error of seeing how it goes. But I think you're right that it is more stimulating. Well, I don't know. Dog sports are pretty. But,
I'm not sure how clear that is spelled out right now in the trial instructions.
Yeah.
So it's a great, just really great. We're having this discussion.
Yeah.
And we will we'll look that up and talk it over in the next meeting. So thanks, everybody. Well, we are down to our last few minutes. Does anybody have any last thoughts on this topic or a question in another direction you'd like to take the conversation for a few minutes?
I heard you mention at the beginning that there might be some live trials. And I know we're looking to do one. Where was the other one?
Indiana.
Because one of our things for our club was talking about like, oh, we'd love to go watch someone doing a trial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to go to Indiana.
Nope. We're excited. I'm excited that there might be one on the West Coast. I'm not going to drive to Portland, but I hope maybe next year I'll have one down here. I just need to get some people recruited from another town so that we have kind of two training centers going that are, relatively close.
There's some, they have like individual people going, but if you look up like Treibball, like Europe or I think it's Berlin, they do trials out there quite often, so you can get like a gist of how like they might run it. They're set up a little bit different. Their fencing is really, really very high, actually, the ones I've seen, but it can kind of give you an idea of what it might be like. Yeah, but I another group was doing it not too far from me, but then they canceled it. But yeah, I would love to just go and see I would like to go see myself another what a trial might look like with this, because it's hard for us to say. This is kind of, this is definitely going to be new. So you're going to be the guinea pig, unfortunately, with this. So we're going to have to watching you.
Has someone had a Nate live trial?
No.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
No, okay.
They and I think ATA has had only 2, maybe 3, and then there's another group up in Canada that does them in like well, not in Canada, but is it Massachusetts? I think Michigan area. They're called Canines and Humans. They do them, but they're pretty much in those Northeast states. I think it's Michigan actually, but yeah.
Michigan's in the Midwest, so you must be Massachusetts.
Michigan. Well, sorry, Midwest.
I know Lisa.
I think it's north. I know it's north, and it's cold.
One in Washington years ago.
What was that, Lorraine?
I said Lisa Wisdom said she went to a trial. I don't know who it was for in Washington State, like a few years ago.
In Washington.
I don't remember who she said ran it, But maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, she said she actually went to a live trial. So she's at least been to one, and she's in our club. So.
All right. Which I know she's involved with ATA too, but I don't remember doing one in Washington. I know that in Colorado they did.
Yeah, I know there's some. So okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So it's new. It's a new thing. So you yeah, this is it. You
No
let
one
us.
can take advice from having one before.
Well, I think having like I know when I was holding classes, we would do like video titling parties, which was kind of similar, because you were filming it and the dogs had to be in crates and they had to come in one at a time. So it would kind of give you a little bit of a gist, but
I mean, that's how we practice, but I think one of the things I'm talking about with our practices is to like maybe have a day where we're going to do like a formal, like a mock trial.
yeah, mock trial. Yeah.
We're going to run practice day as if we're trialing, do everything you would do for a trial kind of stuff. So we'll see.
And that's kind of how the system is set up. So you've got the first step is to do oh gosh, I guess I didn't come prepared. What's it called, Carolyn?
What?
Well, before you can do a trial, you have to do something else first. It's called
either a mock trial or
a sanctioned match.
a sanctioned match. Yes.
So that's what you're talking about. And so you run this sanctioned match and you run it like a trial and you videotape it and then you film that and you submit the film and then that with that you get allowed to be a trial host.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just look over the handbook and then put it in an email or email me because it's me, competition services. So we'll figure it out together.
Are you planning on doing this year?
Yeah, we are.
We need to get more judges out west then. We don't have any.
Well, that's part of our whole thing too, is also like, figuring out who can judge.
Yeah. Because I'm in North Carolina and Indiana, and then.
So, well, I think the sanctioned match also is part of a process for testing the judge. So, and you guys probably are going to want to have 2 judges so that you can judge each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. I know we're looking through, like, so we have a committee that's going to be like figuring out the trial stuff, and I was like, here, just like I was like sent them I'm like, here's the neat rule book, just read it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but just look up the judges process because depending on how at what level you're going to be competing, if it's just all novice or intermediate, the judge just has to have. The judge themselves has to either have a dog or have trained a dog that is up to the level they're judging. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out there because sometimes it's not going through the rule book. Just check out that part as like the requirements and.
Okay.
But yeah, you're gonna need. Yeah, you guys are big out there in California.
Oh no, Oregon.
You need a judge out there. You need.
It's on our list.
Listen, you could fly me out there. That'd be awesome.
There you go.
We did talk about that. We're like, well, if we had money, we could get judges come or get whatever or travel. I was like, but right now we have $0 for our club.
Yeah, you can do it. All right, you guys, we're at the end of our time. This was really awesome. Thanks everybody for being here today. And very exciting. It's going to be an exciting year. So we'll talk more and see you guys at the next Clubhouse chat.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.